And welcome, boys and girls, to the Big Bets on Campus podcast presented by BetMGM. I am your host, Matthew Cox, joined by the usual cast of three-man weave characters. There's only three of us. That leaves two. Kai is one, and Jim Root is two. We're here again every Wednesday, a new episode of BBOC, talking about all the midweek to late midweek action of college hoops. On today's episode, the same boilerplate format applies, going through our six-pack of section key games, mid-majors, big boys, little guys, all that good stuff. Fellas, how we doing? Kai, opening thoughts before we get into it.
I'm just excited to talk hoops, Matt, per
Good.
usual. Yes.
Enthusiasm is mandatory on this podcast. Jim, how are you?
We got to stay cooking, Matt. We've been fairly solid on the pod recently, and I think we should continue to do that. If we have to choose between that and the alternative, I think we should continue to pick winners.
The key to our success has been targeting very specific team angles, specifically fading Memphis. We'll talk about Memphis in a tongue-in-cheek light later on, but let's get right to the live dog of the week, where I hammered at Memphis last week. Rice got the outright winner. Fun. The Owls who got it done. The group also got Georgia right for 36 minutes, but then they collapsed down the stretch against Alabama. Alabama has that ability to put on a 20-0 run in a matter of seconds, and they did that to us. But how about West Virginia? Got it done, hosting the Bearcats. Got a juicy little spread there. A few money line dog trailers out there. Hopefully you followed. So I'd give us a two pats on the back for last week's performance. And now we look ahead to this week's slate for moneyline dogs of the week. We got a couple on Wednesday, a couple on Thursday, and as usual, feel free to pepper in some suggestions of your own. I will tolerate that, assuming they're actually good suggestions, of course. Wednesday, we have Louisville? Question mark? Yes, we do. Louisville, Kai, they're 1-0 in their last one. Got a nice little win over Florida State. Tyler Johnson was cooking, and Sky Clark, addition by subtraction, maybe, did not play. And yes, they beat the Noles. And now they go up to upstate New York, where they play Syracuse, who has Red Autry claiming that walk-ons might be singing the floor. So whenever you hear walk-ons threatened, that's usually not a good sign for your program. We saw Michigan, Juwan Howard, give a similar sentiment after his post-game presser. But KenPom has this as Syracuse -12. So you might get a pretty juicy number if you want to actually bet Louisville on the money line, which sounds like an absolute preposterous proposal, but given the value and who their opponent is, Jim, I do like that one. The other one I picked out was our Georgia Bulldogs, again, going on the road to Mississippi State, playing Chris Jans, and the brittle Bulldogs of Starkville, dwindling depth there. Any thoughts on either of those two I picked out for Wednesday?
Yeah, I think personnel is pretty enormous on both of them. I'm kind of on board the Sky Clark addition by subtraction. I think we kind of saw it at Illinois last year. And I know it's only been a game and a half, but when he was out late against Clemson is when they rallied. They were down like 20 and ended up making it somewhat competitive after he got hurt. And then again, that very solid performance against Florida State. So I'm pretty interested there. Syracuse just kicked Benny Williams off the team too. So you have maybe that aspect. Is that addition by subtraction, or is it just a sign of the kind of chaos that is surrounding the Orange program right now? And then the other game, yeah, you said dwindling depth for Mississippi State. DJ Jeffries missed almost their entire game over the weekend. He is super important as a defender, multi-positional, kind of embodies their style and what makes Mississippi State difficult to play against. That said, Mississippi State's played the toughest schedule in the SEC so far per KenPom. It's been a brutal gauntlet of good games at home and tough road tests. I think they can kind of get right there. I'm not gonna back that, but Matt, I think I am gonna jump on Louisville with you, just given the disarray that Syracuse is in, Kai.
I'm jumping on Louisville as well, which is crazy to say from the preseason perspective. Syracuse is a team that I liked in the preseason. I thought they would be good. Clearly, it has not happened. The last several games has been terrible. It's no surprise that Autry is mad about his team's performances. They lost by 16 at home to Florida State. In the last two games, they've lost in pretty big ways. And Boston College was close, but it's still Boston College. So they've lost 3 out of 4. And Louisville, look, they're not super incompetent. I kind of buy the Clark addition by subtraction. The Florida State game was impressive. They've only won once on the road this entire season. That was against Miami. So they beat a semi-competent team, at least compared to Syracuse on the road already, for some precedence. But it's not the safest bet, we'll say, to take Louisville. I'd take it small for sure. But yeah, I do believe that Syracuse is kind of twisting down the drain a bit So I'll jump on Louisville with you, Matthew.
Yeah, Louisville's my actually only official play of this section, just to full transparency before we get to the Thursday games. But I just think the value you'll get there should hopefully catch 6-1, maybe 7-1, hopefully maybe on the Cardinals. Against the team, yeah, Syracuse should be completely battened and bruised. All right, to Thursday we go. UAB heading down to Florida Atlantic. I can't believe I'm picking on my Owls here in this section, but Jim, we both reluctantly discussed that in American play, they have not been as dominant. They are 2-7 against a number in AAC play, 1-4 away from home here. So I'm sorry, FAU is on the road or they're at home? I'm messing up my schedule here.
FAU is on the road
they're
UAB.
on the road. Thank you. Yeah, so I have it wrong in the outline, but they are on the road. They're 1-4 against a number on the road, 2-7 in league. Both sets up like pretty good spots for UAB, Jim, who is playing better and certainly can play to a pretty high number given their talent and their just their overall dynamism that they have at all 5 positions. The other game I picked out here are my Beavers, Oregon State back at home, who swept the Arizonas in their last homestand, struggled on the most recent road trip, but different team home and road, as are many of these Pac-12 teams. But Oregon State has really been a Jekyll and Hyde home v road team. And I think if you're catching 7 points at home, money line equivalent 2-3-1, I think it's a pretty good bet there against Washington State, who is really good, but again, I think mortal outside of their own friendly confines. Jimbo, to you, thoughts?
Yeah, both of these are really tempting. The 7-point home dog. You mentioned how good Oregon State's been at home. They've shot the ball really, really well when they're home in Corvallis. And yeah, UAB, like coming into the year, I picked this team 3rd in the league. A lot of talent. Thought they would kind of maybe not contest with Memphis and FAU atop the league, but at least have a chance to do it if things broke right. And they struggled early. Non-conference performance was kind of odd. It just seemed like they were disjointed, but they're playing well lately. And in league play, if they haven't really done anything wrong, their only losses are at FAU, which was close most of the game, at Charlotte, who sits at 8-1 atop the league, and at SMU by 3. They've been very, very tough at home, knocked off Memphis. They won at North Texas, which is a rather difficult place to play. So at Bartow Arena, Kai, I'm tempted by both of these. I think they're both pretty solid bets. I'm only going to officially go with Oregon State for the show, but I like what Matt's putting down here with UAB too.
I like UAB. Yep, I certainly do. You're not going to get 7. It won't happen. Yeah. But yeah, FAU, man, they've been playing with fire just about every single game in the American. They come back and they end up winning because they're a poised team and they don't panic. But it's still getting a little bit dicey. And UAB has been very good lately. Agreed, Jim. Preseason, we thought this team would be pretty darn good. Even in KenPom, they were a top 100 team in the preseason, competed with Bradley and Clemson right off the bat, beat Maryland. They're 6-1 against the spread their last 7 games. They clearly are playing better. FAU, not so much. In fact, if you filter in Bartorvik for the last couple weeks of the season, UAB would be favored by 3 or 4 points. So wow, I think this would be a good bet for the Blazers here. So I'm riding with them. I was going to endorse Oregon State. I'm going to back out of it. I've been really impressed with Wazoo lately. I'm going to stay away, but I do respect a bet on the Beavers, Matthew, because they are a lot tougher at home. +7 would be tempting. Money line, I'm not going to go there.
Screw it, Kai. You got me. You got me in on UAB. I'm joining. Okay. I like talked through it like I thought it was a strong bet, and so why would I not take it? I'd just be mad at myself for talking through it and not taking it. So Matt, I'm taking both your Thursday bets.
All right, good. Well, you're welcome to. Feel free to hijack any of my suggestions. I will not be taking UAB money line. I will probably be betting them against the spread. I just think the late game execution for FAU is light years better than UAB from what I've witnessed so far. I like how you guys picked out the Rice and Memphis angles. Rice playing at home against SMU, a team that was much better at home to start the year, but then the recent trends have actually flip-flopped. They've been better away from Houston than they have been at home. But if you're getting the money line equivalent of +9, it's a pretty good number against SMU, who clearly has leveled off. They've not been as dominant as we saw the first 2 months of the year. And then Memphis, they just squeaked by. Who did they just beat recently at home? By
Wichita State.
Wichita,
they shouldn't have beat them. They were down 12 with like 6 minutes left.
They go to Temple, tough place to go play, especially Temple playing better. Just lost in overtime by 12. Sorry, to minus or +10.5. Backers against Tulane, but clearly a competent team in Memphis is still busting at the seams. I'm taking neither, but just 2 more for your considerations. Kai, run through your official moneyline slate for this week.
Yeah, just real quick on SMU. Yeah, 0-4 against the spread last four. Rice 4-2 against the spread last six. Two teams opposite directions. Not taking anything there. Temple sucks. I'm not going to back
I
Temple.
agree.
No,
I'm still in the
you.
Temple sucks camp. I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah. I'm going Louisville. Little hold your nose money line there, and then UAB. I really think they have a good chance to win outright. Hey, if they don't, fantastic. I love FAU, and I wish nothing but success for that program. So this is good. This is a win-win for me both ways here.
Yep, I'm going to join Kai on Louisville and UAB. Also going to give that the swing out in Corvallis with Oregon State taking on Washington State, trying to build an NCAA tournament case. And then I am going to go Rice, Matthew. I'm not brave enough to take Temple and that kind of cobbled together roster with no size against Memphis, but I will go with the Owls at home against SMU. It just feels like SMU is becoming a lot more mortal lately. I mentioned their ATS trending downwards. I will take Rice back-to-back weeks. You inspired me with your Rice take last week.
Thank you. More of a anti-inspo against Memphis, but glad that it worked out in Rice's favor. But yeah, SMU 4 straight games decided by 5 points or less. So tough to, not exactly a team that's routing teams as we saw earlier in the season. And for me, just Louisville. So one and done. Come on, Kenny Payne, deliver for me, please. We move forward to section number 2, Blowout City. Decent week last week for the boys. Couple of squeaky covers, if we're looking at this, of did we pick blowouts that would cover. Colgate did win by 19. That would be good enough for a cover at the closing number. Again, continuing to pick on those Patriot teams at the bottom of the barrel that just aren't that good. And Colgate typically plays better against those teams. Mentioned Memphis at length. We won't need
Whoops. My bad. I said my bad. Memphis.
Oh, yeah. Kai thought Memphis was going to blow out Rice. Idiot.
I did. I really did.
It's okay. You're forgiven. And then South Florida, USF. The other USF, the West Coast USF, San Francisco, beat San Diego by 16 points. That was basically the push or a cover, a non-cover, depending on what closing number you would have gotten there. I was surprised that the Toreros hung around for as long as they did with the Dons, just given how those teams profile. But we look ahead, and my first selection option for this week stays in the WCC. That's Gonzaga hosting Portland, who has become kind of a pinata in the WCC. My guy Shanty Legans just cannot get any defense from his Pilots. The Zags laying 25, according to Ken Pom. We'll see where that actually opens up. That's a big number, but it doesn't feel like the Pilots kind of have any hope of guarding Gonzaga. And then another team that we like at home, Indiana State, hosting Valpo. Now, this one's tricky because they're off that big win that you two are both at in person against Drake. Valpo comes to town. Are they playing inspired ball? I just think Indiana State takes them to the woodshed, spot agnostic. 2 for Wednesday, Kai. Any interest in those laying the wood?
Yeah, I think both are worth it. I would say Gonzaga more so because, the spot coming off the St. Mary's loss, Portland is not the Portland of last season, the magical team. Although they've won 2 straight. I mean, they haven't been rolling over lately, but I don't think they can compete with Gonzaga's level. You saw them lose by like 40 to St. Mary's. I just don't think they step up well against the elite teams of the league, of which there are 2, maybe 3. So yeah, I like Gonzaga there a lot. Indiana State's incredible. I don't think Valpo is going to hang around, Jim, but I like that one a little bit less. Just given the emotional victory over Drake, crowd couldn't be any better that night. So I'll endorse Gonzaga and maybe fence ride Indiana State.
Yeah, Indiana State's just fun to back as a big favorite because the offense can explode. But I'm with you guys, Gonzaga. It's like weirdly a buy low of a -25 favorite and a sell high of a 25-point dog, considering Portland's lost or won 2 in a row. But they just can't get healthy, man. Tyler Harris returned for 2 games, then has missed the 2 wins that they've had. Karoma's been out for a long time. He's like the actual interior weapon. They've got Matt, the big Japanese guy, Yamanuchi Williams, has been in there, but not like fully. It doesn't seem like he's fully himself. They just can't stop anybody. You can score inside, you can score outside. Their defensive rating in league play is 122. That's 122 points per 100 possessions. Gonzaga is a great offense, and at home in Spokane off a loss. It all adds up to me, Matthew. I'll be riding the Zags.
Yeah, I should have raised concern or sounded the alarm bells of Portland when Legans was so geeked about Yamanuchi Williams, of Lamar transfer in the offseason discussion. So that's sort of emblematic of where this team is right now, talent-wise. One more for consideration on Thursday. Detroit Mercy and no teams have had any mercy against them this season. Looking for their first win on the year, catching 20 points at Wright State, a team that can certainly beat teams that are worse than them by big margins. Yeah, I don't know. I think Detroit's sort of at this point when you're 360th in KenPom. Shouts to the Horizon, by the way. 2 of the bottom 4 teams in the country are in the Horizon this season. But yeah, tough to say there's value on fading Detroit at this point. Kai, any interest on the Raiders at home, or is it just like a stupid spread where it's not even worth considering?
Yeah, not really. I think they can name their number in terms of points scored. I think they'll score at least 100, probably 110. You're talking about the best offense in the league against the worst defense. And I don't think either stat is particularly close. So I think it's going to be points for Wright State. We'll see how much Wright State cares about playing defense, because that's really the only limiting factor.
Yep, I agree.
I'm going to bet the first half over in that game, Matt. How's that for a little niche market? I think they get up and down, and maybe in the second half, if it's a blowout, Wright State isn't as incentivized to keep the gas pedal down. But I'm envisioning something like 56-42 at halftime. Like I think this is going to be an efficiency bonanza on both ends.
Yeah, Wright State plays Matador defense. They just don't have any interest on that side of the ball. But we shall
see.
Half
the time they don't need to. They score so efficiently. Who cares?
Exactly. Right. You're up 10. You can kind of give up some easy ones in transition. No big deal. All right. Those are lame games. Let's talk about some actual power conference games. But before we get there, a word from our sponsor. That's BetMGM. BBOC is proudly presented by BetMGM. Please use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get $158 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Pretty good deal there. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Power game of the week. I'll be honest, a lot of the heavy hitters are on Saturday, so Stuckey and the crew will get you all teed up for those. But we have Iron Bowl to break down here, fellas. That's Wednesday. Alabama at Auburn. Should be a fun one, Kai. Bruce Pearl and the boys looking for a big signature marquee resume win after their tough road trip last week. But KenPom has says Auburn -3. I see a lot of back and forth market push and pull with this one. I think there's a lot of dissenting opinions in the market, I guess, on both teams. Where do you stand on the Iron Bowl?
Yeah, this is for first place in the SEC. Bama takes a pretty nice lead if they win. If they lose, it's a tie between Alabama and Auburn. Game 1 was really good as well in Tuscaloosa. Alabama kind of controlled it the entire way. Auburn only lost by 4, but it was Bama's game from start to finish. Very impressive. I like Auburn a lot better at home. They clearly have not been the same team on the road. Their defense has been incredible this season in general. I do think they give Alabama problems on that end, or at least have the potential to. Holding them to barely over 1 point per possession in game 1 is impressive. They did force turnovers. Mark Sears, 5 turnovers in that first game. I think Auburn slaps them back here at home, so I lean their way here.
Yep. Kai, you mentioned trusting Auburn at home more. I agree with that. I also trust Alabama at home more, and they're not at home. They have shot the ball way better at home than they have on the road. We know they don't live in the mid-range. They don't take floaters much. It's pretty much rim and 3 when you're talking Alabama, and Auburn is terrific defending the rim. I think you get the swell of that atmosphere, the way that they elevate the Tigers in the jungle there. So I think, yeah, Auburn gets the rebuttal victory, Matthew. They only have 1 quad 1 win right now. Their profile in the NCAA tournament is like the resume doesn't match up with the metrics, so they're hard to seed. I think we start to see that correct here. I was against them last week on the road. I thought they were kind of overvalued, but now back home, picking off a riding high Alabama. Yeah, I like Auburn.
Yeah, number 5 and number 7 in KenPom, respectively. I still am hesitant to anoint them both as true elite, but they're right there. They're knocking at the door. Maybe at the end of this game, I'll have some conviction on either one. The other two to note on Wednesday, I'm calling this the Big East double bubble trouble. 2 matchups with bubble-issues teams in action. Creighton going to Providence, Villanova going to Xavier. Villanova is just a whack-a-mole type team, but it feels like their roller coaster year is somewhat predictable in a sense. Spots seem to be pretty obvious with this team, whether they play awesome, whether they play terrible, but it all comes down to, do they make threes and do their opponents make threes? Creighton at Providence, I think the story here, Kai, is Bryce Hopkins not in the lineup, hasn't been for a while. Providence still playing pretty well without him, kind of gritty, gutty, defensive minded. And the Creighton jumpsuit and Jays, man, losing at home to Butler, giving up 150 points or whatever that final tally was. I am officially worried about my Jays. Thoughts on either of these two angles, bets?
Yeah,
leans?
I've said I've been shocked by how competitive Providence has been without Hopkins. They're 5-3 against the spread, but the kicker here is they're 1-2 against the spread as a favorite without Hopkins, and one of those is DePaul. So I really do think they play better as a dog. They just don't die. They're kind of a cockroach. Game one against Creighton. If you watch that game, Creighton got up by as many as I mean, I
It
want
was
to say
18. I
yeah,
believe it's
18
okay.
points. It looked like it was in the bag, and then Providence just did some voodoo magic, came back. Creighton still almost covered that game, that 11-point spread. As a pick, as a small favorite, I really don't like backing Providence here. I think Creighton's the much better team. Again, Providence has two guys who can score. It's Carter and Oduro. You have to think McDermott has a good game plan the second time around here. So I like Creighton here, Jim.
Creighton's just such a strange team defensively. It's like they've taken everything that people have ever talked about schematic or like mathematically to the extreme. Like, we're not going to foul, we're not going to force turnovers, but we're going to force you into the mid range. You won't get to shoot threes. We have Kalkbrenner at the rim. So they're just like trusting math and they'll get defensive rebounds. I think it can be a problem if the other team is always comfortable and always know
Yeah,
they're going to
there's
be
no
able to get to their
harassment. I agree.
spots. Yeah, you're just not bothered by Stephen Ashworth's on-ball pressure or Baylor Shireman's on-ball pressure, and it lets other teams get a little bit comfortable sometimes. And at home, Providence kind of back against the wall. They just got blitzed over the weekend on Sunday at Villanova. Kind of an embarrassing offensive performance. I'm scared enough of Creighton's defensive question marks on the road. I'm not going to bet this one, Matt. I think there's a chance Providence picks up a huge NCAA tournament resume win.
I think I lean that way. But you mentioned the Villanova game from the weekend against Providence, which is why I think it sets up for a good spot for Xavier, especially at home, who has been, one of the strongest home versus road split teams in the country. Now they just went into DePaul and won by a million, but that doesn't count because DePaul's not a real team at this point. I think Xavier -3, if that's what the actual number opens, as what KenPom has it, Kai, is a great wager. I will be on the X-Men if I can find that price. I'm sure I'll be shaded up a little bit given the market's so in tune to Nova, and especially Xavier at home. But we'll see on Thursday. Not a lot of action, I'll be honest, kind of a light week slate. Sorry, Pac-12 fans. We will mention Arizona at Utah. Could be a real doozy up on the mountain. Quite our key injury question marks for the Utes here. Who's going to play? Utah did get that big win at home, despite being shorthanded against Colorado, but I still think they're going to need all their hands on deck to beat Arizona. Kai Raleigh Worcester, not in the lineup. I think he's key in this matchup. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's key. Lovering came back. That's huge against Arizona's front line. Yeah, it's kind of the same story a little bit as the SEC teams. Arizona on the road, they haven't been, fantastic. Teams are certainly shooting well against them. Let's just caveat that. But their 3 losses in conference play have been on the road: Stanford, Wazoo, Oregon State. And they've had a couple wins there, but they're just certainly not the same team. Utah, one of the toughest places to play in the entire country. I would be very hesitant to back Arizona at a big-ish number here. Not sure I want Utah at like +3 or something, because I still think the Wildcats are the best team in the country. But yeah, I would, man, it's really spread dependent here, Jim. If it's like 6, I'm leaning towards Utah. If it's like 3, I'd lean towards Arizona.
Yeah, I buy that. And just to back up what you're saying with Arizona on the road, teams are shooting 43% from 3 when Arizona's on the road. Like Oregon State lit them up, Stanford lit
Oregon
them up.
State made every shot.
Yeah, and Stanford shot 64% or something from 3 at Maple Pavilion. So I don't think Arizona's as flawed on the road as people are maybe making it out to be, because it's been a little bit of outlier performances. However, I'm not anxious to back them on the mountain trip. You're going to Utah and then you got Colorado over the weekend. I think if they beat Utah, you bet Colorado on over the weekend, and vice versa. If Utah takes them down here, I think you get a bounce back. But this feels like a big time split the mountain trip, Matthew.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Real quick, shouts to Friday. We have Dayton at VCU. You boys were both just at Dayton Arena last week, and now they go to Richmond to take on the Rams, who are obviously trending up right now. Battle for the top of the A10. Dayton at 8-1, Richmond 8-1, VCU at 6-3. Still 2 games back. I think VCU at home here gets it done. I just think it's an ugly, low-scoring game. The way the Rams have been defending has been fairly impressive. as awesome as Dayton's been, I do feel like they are a body short. I worry about their depth. Kai, any take on Dayton VCU real quick here before we get to the mid-majors, the true mid-majors?
I guess I'd pay attention. We're recording this on Tuesday, but I'd pay attention to what happens tonight between Dayton and St. Joe's. If Dayton drops that game, it's hard to see Dayton dropping 2 in a row in this league.
Yeah.
They are that good. Jim and I saw this team in person last weekend as well. They are incredible. Deron Holmes is unstoppable. VCU has no chance against Deron Holmes. Absolutely zero chance. VCU is tough at home, man, but I really hesitate to fade Dayton in this league.
Yeah, VCU also, you got to figure out Bairstow's status. He missed last game.
Should be back today.
Has been a solid piece for them. Supposed to play this week against Fordham, like Kai's saying. This one, Matt. It's hard to, you can't get a feel for the spot without knowing what happens in the Tuesday
Tonight.
night game.
Yep.
So we're not gonna.
And with
we're
the
not gonna
injuries there as well.
give it anything strong. I'm sure the Friday BBOC pod will have a quick take on that game.
All right, mid-majors. We got a couple of doozies this week. Wednesday, High Point at UNC Asheville. We're going to the Big South. High Point has been the darling of the mid-major kingdom this year. 20-4 overall, 9-0 in the league, Mr. McKeon. Going to UNC Asheville, this should be a round to pick because UNC Asheville, who got bludgeoned in some non-con games, stepping up in class, has been cruising throughout the Big South, as they did last year, led by Drew Pember, our boy, the ponytail king, the long-haired king. But High Point got Duke Miles back last game. Not that it matters because his sidekick, Hezekiah, has been an absolute star. This game's going to be awesome. I don't really have a hard take or hard lean in this game. I just wanted to call it to your attention as a college basketball fan listener. You should be watching this game if you can get it on your television. Kai, if it's around a pick, will you have an angle, a lean in this one?
Asheville is my lean. High Point's been fantastic, but I still think this team is better, at home. We certainly saw that to an extreme last season. This year, they have been covering on the road. In conference play, though, interestingly enough, despite being 9-0, High Point 5-4 against the spread. Teams are competing against them. Presbyterian took them to the wire. Winthrop took them to the wire. Both those games on the road. Asheville even had this game within 1 point at High Point when they played earlier this season. I think Asheville gets it done. It's a team that I thought would be the best in the league coming into the year, along with Winthrop. And I still think they have a chance to be. They're going to have the best player on the floor in Pember. That's always going to give you an advantage to win. Obviously, being at home helps out. So I lean towards Asheville.
Yeah, if High Point wins this, they're taking their ball and going home in Big South play. Like they're going to be up major lead at the top of the standings. But High Point on the road, you mentioned the home road splits. Defensively, like they're just much better at home. Sounds like a compliment, but they're just that bad defensively on the road. Like they can't guard anybody. If you filter Bart Torvik for just road games, they're 304th nationally in defense when playing in the road. Asheville can really score. So Matt, this feels like over, and I do think Asheville gets it done and keeps this race at least somewhat close down the stretch of February here.
It does feel like an over. I don't, High Point's defense is, I feel like they can play defense when they're engaged. They just haven't been engaged all that much this year because they're always up by 10 points or more. So we'll see. You could actually argue their defense is undervalued, but I'm not going to go there. I think Pember could actually expose them. A quick nod to a Thursday showdown. We've been hitting the Coastal, the artist formerly known as the Colonial, pretty hard in this section. We have a UNC Wilmington at Drexel rematch, Kai, teed up. Two teams at the top of the totem pole there. Drexel took down the Seahawks way back in early January. Now the revenge spot sets up here. What do you like? I think this is a low-scoring rock fight that the Seahawks prevail in.
Yeah, it's Wilmington at Trask for me, Matthew. Yeah, exactly. Game one was shooting split bonanza. Drexel 47% from three and Wilmington was 20%. I don't think that's even close to reality between these two teams. Not that Wilmington shot well at all this season, but Drexel shooting that well is an aberration. They've been shooting that well in conference play all year. I think it's due to regress. ATS wise, they're 1-4 last 5. They've been struggling lately. That's kind of what we expected. They're a solid team, but it's mainly the defensive end. They stagnate like crazy offensively. I think at UNC Wilmington, arguably the best home court advantage in the conference. I think that comes to fruition in this one. So I like Wilmington here, Jim.
Yeah, again, I don't think Drexel is the clear-cut best team that's going to start to separate atop the standings and going to such a difficult environment. It's going to be packed house, sold out. Even if Wilmington gets down early, we've seen over the past year and a half, this team loves to come back from any kind of deficit, mostly double digits last year, but I don't think they get down double digits here. they've got enough bodies to kind of throw at Amari Williams inside. It's not like they're going to dominate that matchup, but they can neutralize him a little bit. And I just trust Drexel, especially Justin Moore, a lot less on the road, Matthew. He can be very erratic in the backcourt for the Dragons. And I think this one sets up like a sort of down performance for him.
Yeah, we thought Drexel would be good, but I think we all agree we don't trust them in certain spots. It's just we've seen enough of the bad too much where, I know what they truly are. Their true colors may shine through here, exposed at that raucous Trask environment. All right, we pivot to the Trash Man pick of the week. We'll hit it quick and we'll move forth because nothing exciting to talk about here. I wanted to give our Patriot brethren a reprieve from being battered and slapped around on this section. So I wanted to, rise up in class to find some trash in the middle of the trash pile, the bigger trash pile. And I find Illinois, Chicago, and Illinois State. Who cares? Missouri Valley game on Wednesday. Interesting angle here, though. Luke Yaklich, former Illinois State man, going back to his former stomping grounds. Two bad teams here. KenPom has it Illinois State -3. I think the Flames, who are 1-11 and now down to 200 in KenPom after getting as high as 115th, I think, in early non-conference. I think they get this road win, Jim. But any take on my trash, I guess, is my question to you.
No, I have no interest in either of these teams. I actually thought Illinois State had been worse against the spread in league play. They're only 5-7, but Illinois Chicago is 1-11 against the spread in league play. Not just straight up standings. They're the worst ATS. We talked about it a little in last week's episode in Kai's Spotlight section, but they're the worst ATS team in league play in the country. Not a horse I'm excited to back. So I will stay away from this, Kai. I also know I've been terrible betting state of Illinois teams while living here. So it's stay away for old Jimbo.
Yeah, it's one of the most wild splits in the country from an ATS perspective. UIC was 8-2 against the spread in non-con, and now they're 1-11 against the spread in Valley play. It's almost like a total give up. I'm not sure what the issue is. And against Illinois State, look, they are not a world beater, but they have some talent on their team. They're a really old, experienced squad. They've won 5 games in league play. Number 1 free throw attempt rate in the league against the team that fouls the most is a pretty good start. UIC not very disciplined this season. Illinois State due for some aggression too, shooting wise in conference play. I lean towards the Redbirds here. Nothing strong. And again, like Matt said, it's the Trash Man pick of the week for a reason.
And my second piece of trash for Thursday, I have zero interest in backing Siena, the Saints, who had a glimmer of hope when they got Sean Dura-Gordon back, and now they're just back to being absolutely awful. I bet them against Ryder, and I think they were down at 50 within the first 5 minutes. They will be hosting the Red Foxes of Marist. Let's just move forward. Any take on this game, guys?
Don't
Marist
watch
is a home
Siena
dog against
basketball.
Marist. Yeah.
Impossible team to get right. They covered last game, but they were down 20 again to Mount St. Mary's.
Yeah.
It's a really hard team to get right.
If any of the 3 of Ely, Dura-Gordon, and Tekken are out, I think they're just like a hardest to stay away is likely an under, and Tekken was out last game and is banged up. So yeah. Ugh.
Well, hey, let's check off Siena. So Siena, Detroit, Mercy, IUPUI, we mentioned that's 3 of the bottom 5 teams in the country on this program. We cover every team. We mean it. We take it seriously here. Spotlight on our final section, Matty Macros. We're talking some conference trends. Just a quick little trivia batch for you guys in superlative fashion. Went through the KenPom conference only page. Fun little page for those who don't use that tool out there. Kind of see how conferences are trending. It sort of explains a lot of the macro. There are lots of overs or unders, favorites, dogs, home road splits, which we've talked about in prior weeks. But pretty good sample at this point, February 6th. So my question to you both, trivia, what is the most efficient conference today? Jim?
I have 2 guesses. I'm gonna hog the ball and guess 2.
Good.
Either the WCC or the ASUN are my 2 guesses.
The ASUN is correct, which makes total sense given actually, who's leading the charge in the ASUN?
Everybody.
Eastern Kentucky.
No one plays any defense except Eastern Kentucky.
Right. They're the outlier, and there's a reason why they're probably atop the standing. It's basically like the North Dakota State of the Summit in years past. Like the reason they always win or always good because it's the only team that actually plays defense. The least efficient conference.
I want Kai to guess that because I don't have a good guess.
The SWAC.
Close. If you catch my
The
drift.
MEAC.
Yes, the MEAC. MEAC's actually a whole 2 points worse than the SWAC. So MEAC really, really struggling to throw it in the ocean up there, below 100, below an average of less than 1 points per possession. Not great there, Bob.
I watched the Coppin State
Oh, yeah,
Maryland Eastern Shore game, Matthew, and it was horrendous. I think it went to overtime, and under still was very, very safe.
I'd ask why, but we don't need to get into that right now, Jim.
I think I had bet the under. That's why.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there you go. The most foul-prone conference. Basically, which conference is most annoying to watch from a flow perspective? Go
Is it my
West.
turn first? Are we doing snake?
Go West.
Yeah,
Kai, to you.
snake
Go
it.
West is my
I'm going
is my
whack.
hint. Whack.
Whack.
42% foul rate. And I've heard a ton of groaning on Twitter from whack fans about how the referees have just taken over those games. But I also think those teams foul a lot. They press a lot.
Look
There's
at
a
the
lot of
teams in that
fouling.
league.
Your
I think it's a
Abilene's,
product
your
of the styles.
SFAs. Yeah.
Tarleton.
Right.
These are teams that
Um,
foul constantly.
So on Twitter, I did not say this, but I wanted to say, look in the mirror, all of you. What is the least foul prone league, Jim? Most flow to these games. Probably not as good for overs potentially.
Yeah, I'm thinking either Ivy or Patriot is my guess.
Ivy.
Just
It's the smart leagues, right? Technically sound, smart. That's exactly right.
yeah,
And
much
as
more
someone who
execution
watched-
based. Yeah.
Yes. That Yale Princeton game was just awesome. Cornell, same way. Even Cornell presses, but they don't foul a ton. Best home winning percentage, Kai. What conference has been the friendliest to the home teams? We talked about this tangentially a few weeks ago, but where are we at right now?
I'm going to guess the Big Ten.
And I'm gonna
Up there, they're fourth.
Is it Conference USA, Matt?
Conference USA is number one, Jim, 28-7, 80% win rate. Home teams.
I wonder, adding like New Mexico State to that is part of it. Like a lot tougher travel.
Yep.
You've got
The
them in
UTEP trip.
and
You have FIU, you Western Kentucky. It's just like it's sort of like the WAC, but like the L is the vertical and then the horizontal is the Conference USA. It's just a weird setup there. ASUN second, Pac-12 third, Kai Big 10 fourth, and Big 12 fifth, Mountain West sixth, WAC seventh. So basically all of those make total sense in terms of best home win percentages. How about the worst? And the answer to this question is sub 500. Home teams are actually below 500 in this conference, Kai. This one makes sense too. Northeast.
I'll go
Northeast
with NEC.
corridor. Close, but no cigar. Jim?
Patriot?
Mm.
No.
The
America
Metro
East.
Atlantic.
Mm.
Vermont.
Vermont.
Oh, America East.
America East.
Yeah.
Okay.
America East. 16-20 are home teams. Tough.
So you want to be playing on the road is what I'm
Road's good.
hearing
Home is
here.
bad.
It's bizarre.
Interesting because that conference tournament, I believe, is all home venues again, or they changed that this year. So it's maybe a year where you actually are going to be fine if you're not hosting. But Vermont always wins, so it doesn't matter. It's not even worth discussing.
It's the Vermont Invitational. Yes.
Vermont Invitational, exactly. Final two for here, the fastest league. Playing well for overs. Jim. It's the
SWAC or ASUN? This
East.
Is it?
I was going to say that.
You say,
America
I'm sorry.
East.
I was going to say America East. Yeah.
I guess they've hired some
UMBC.
coaches recently.
Albany.
Yeah. And even at New Hampshire,
Bryant
Nathan Davis.
and New
was a
Hampshire.
major
Yes, those
accelerator.
four. Like, you know, Bryant, you know, UMBC probably, but I don't think people realize how like Albany is just going and blowing. And then, New Hampshire, Nathan Davis.
Going and blowing.
Going and blowing and going.
By the way, for the listeners out there, my big tip is every time Matt asks me a question, I guess two. That's my strategy. Just sneak it both in there.
Not good for Jeopardy, good for this format. Kai, slowest conference.
The slowest conference in America is wow, that's a tough one. I'm gonna go Ivy.
Close. Give you a second guess. It's featured heavily in our trash man section usually.
Is it Patriot?
Yeah, Patriot.
Yeah.
64.7 possessions on average per game.
Yeah, it's gross.
Not even
Army,
Colgate can run a gun that
Lafayette.
way. Gross.
Yeah.
There's like
Execution.
rarely a team that actually wants to run there. It's
Yeah, not a ton of speed or athletes in that league. Shame. All right, that's all we have. I just want to kind of talk about those angles. 'Cause I think all of those kind of play into over versus unders if you're looking to, bet, especially get this late in the year. I think some of these conference trends mean something until they don't, of course, but until they do, or for now, they do. So there it is. Little intel for you and your betting wallets. Fellas, that concludes today's BBOC episode. Come back and join us next Wednesday, same time as always. But definitely check out Stuckey and the guys this weekend as they break down another monstrous conference Saturday slate. Until that time, good luck, and may the 3-point variance be ever in your favor.